Once upon a time, and back in the day, there lived an old couple who had a daughter named Mary. In their village, it was customary to celebrate the feast of St. Andrew the First Called on November 30th. The village girls would assemble in some cottage, bake pempruski, and enjoy themselves for a whole week, sometimes longer. Well, once the festival arrived, the young women brewed and baked, and in the evening came the lads with musical instruments and liquor, and the dancing and revelry began. All the girls danced well, but Mary best of all. After a while, into the cottage came a stranger, a fine fellow, smartly and richly dressed. "Hail, fair maidens," said he. "Hail, stranger," they answered. "May I join you?" "Please do." The stranger pulled from his pocket a purse full of gold and ordered liquor, nuts, and gingerbread, sharing it with the entire company. Then he took to dancing, and as Mary struck his fancy more than the other lasses, he stuck close to her. Eventually, the time came for going home. "Mary," said he, "come and see me on my way." She went to see him on his way. "Mary, sweetheart," said the stranger, "would you like me to marry you?" Mary was much taken with the handsome stranger. "If you want to marry me, I will gladly marry you. But where do you come from?" "From such and such a place. I'm clerk at a merchant's." Then they bade each other good night and separated. When Mary got home, her mother said, "Well, daughter, did you enjoy yourself?" "Yes, mother, and I've something pleasant to tell you besides. There was a lad there from the neighborhood, good-looking and with lots of money, and he promised to marry me." "But who is he, and where does he come from?" "That, mother, I do not know." "Then hark, Mary. When you join the girls tomorrow, take a ball of thread, make a noose in it, and when you wish him good night, throw the noose over one of his buttons, and quietly unroll the ball. Then, by means of the thread, you will be able to find out where he lives." Next day, Mary went to the gathering and took a ball of thread with her. The stranger came again. "Good evening, Mary," said he. "Good evening," said she. Games began, followed by dancing. The stranger stuck to Mary and refused to budge from her. Eventually the time came for going home. "Come and see me on my way, Mary," said the stranger. They went out into the street, and as she was taking leave of him, Mary quietly dropped the noose over one of his buttons. He went his way, but she remained where she was, unrolling the ball. When she had completely unrolled it, she followed the thread to find where her fiancé lived. She followed the thread all the way to the church, right up to the porch. Mary tried the door. It was locked. She went round the church, found a ladder, set it against a window, and climbed up to see what was going on inside. And saw her fiancé standing beside a grave and devouring a dead body, for a corpse had been left in the church that night. Mary tried to get down the ladder quietly, but in her fright she made a little noise. She ran home, almost beside herself, thinking that she was being pursued. She was all but dead before she got in. Next morning her mother said, "Well, Mary, did you see the young man?" "I saw him, mother," she replied. but she did not tell all she had seen. In the evening, Mary was sitting brooding, considering whether to go to the gathering or not. "Go," said her mother. "Amuse yourself. That is what youth is for." But when she arrived, the fiend was there already, and stayed next to her the entire evening. When it was time to go, the evil one said, "Come, Mary, see me on my way." She was afraid and didn't stir, so the other girls began to tease her. "What is the matter with you? Are you bashful? Go and wish him good night." There was no help for it. Out she went, not knowing what might happen. As soon as they got into the street, he began to question her. "Were you in the church last night?" "No." "And saw what I was doing there?" "No." "Very well. Tomorrow your father will die." Having said this, he disappeared. Mary returned home grave and sad. But when she woke up in the morning, her father lay dead. They wept and wailed over him and laid him in the coffin. In the evening, her mother went to the priest, but Mary remained at home. At last, she became afraid of being alone in the house and decided to go to her friends. But she found the evil one there. "Why are you so sad?" the young women said to her. "My father is dead." "Oh, oh, you poor thing." They all grieved for her, even the accursed one, as if it hadn't been his own doing. And at the end of the night, "Mary," said he, "see me on my way." She didn't want to go, but her friends insisted, and so she passed out into the street with the fiend. "Tell me, Mary," said he, "were you at the church?" "No." "Did you see what I was doing?" "No." "Very well. Tomorrow your mother will die." He spoke and disappeared. Mary returned home sadder than ever. Next morning, when she awoke, her mother lay dead. She cried all day long, but when the sun set and it grew dark around, Mary became afraid of being left alone, so she went back to her friends. The other girls cried when they heard the tragic news, but the fiend smiled. Well, the time came to say goodbye. The fiend told her to see him outside. "Tell me, were you in the church?" "No." "And saw what I was doing?" "No." "Very well. Tomorrow evening you will die yourself." In the morning, Mary considered what she should do. She remembered her grandmother, an old, very old woman, who had become blind from length of years. "Suppose I go and ask her advice," she said, and then went off to her grandmother's. "Good day, Granny," said she. "Good day, granddaughter. What news is there with you? How are your father and mother?" "They are dead, Granny," replied the girl, and then she told her all that had happened. The old woman listened and said, "My poor unhappy child, go quickly to the priest and ask him this favor, that if you die, you may be buried at a crossroads, at a spot where 4 roads meet." Mary went to the priest, wept bitterly, and made him promise to do everything according to her grandmother's instructions. Then she returned home, bought a coffin, lay down in it, and died. Well, they told the priest, and he buried First her father and mother, and then Mary herself. But she was buried at a crossroad. Soon afterwards, a lord's son happened to drive past Mary's grave. On that grave he saw growing a wondrous flower, such a one as he had never seen before. Said the young lord to his servant, "Go and pluck that flower up by the roots. We'll take it home and put it in a flower pot. Perhaps it will blossom there." Well, they dug up the flower, took it home, put it in a glazed flower pot, and set it in a window. The flower began to grow larger and more beautiful. One night, as the servant was going to bed, he happened to glance at the window and saw a wondrous thing take place. All of a sudden, the flower began to tremble. Then it fell from its stem to the ground and turned into a lovely maiden. The flower was beautiful, but the maiden was more beautiful still. She wandered from room to room, got herself various things to eat and drink, ate and drank, then stamped upon the ground, and became a flower as before, climbing up to the window and resuming her place on the stem. Next day, the servant told the young lord of the wonders which he had seen during the night. "Ah, brother," said the youth, "why didn't you wake me? Tonight we'll both keep watch together." That night they watched. At midnight the blossom began to shake, then fell to the ground, and the beautiful maiden appeared, got herself things to eat and drink, and sat down to supper. The young lord rushed forward and took her by her white hands. He was overwhelmed by her beauty. Next morning he said to his father and mother, "Please allow me to get married. I found myself a bride." Her parents gave their consent. As for Mary, she said, "I will marry you, but only on one condition, that for 4 years I need not go to church." "Very good," said he. And so they were married, and they lived together 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and had a son. But one day they had visitors to their house, who, over drinks, began bragging about their wives. This one's wife was handsome, but that one's was handsomer still. "You may say what you like," said the Lord, "but a handsomer wife than mine does not exist in the whole world." "Handsome, yes," replied the visitors, "but a heathen." "A heathen? How so?" "Why, she never goes to church." Her husband found these observations distasteful. He waited till Sunday, and then told his wife to get dressed for church. "I don't care what you may say," said he. "Go and get ready directly." Well, they got ready and went to church. The husband went in and didn't see anything particular. But when she looked round, there was the Fiend sitting at a window. "Ha! Here you are at last," he cried. "Remember old times? Were you in the church that night?" "No." "And did you see what I was doing there?" "No." "Very well. Tomorrow both your husband and your son will die." Mary rushed straight out of the church and away to her grandmother. The old woman gave her 2 phials, the one full of holy water, the other of the water of life, and told her what she was to do. Next day, both Mary's husband and her son died. Then the Fiend came flying to her and said, "Tell me, were you in the church?" "I was." "And did you see what I was doing?" "Yes. you were eating a corpse." She spoke and splashed the holy water over him. In a moment he turned into mere dust and ashes, which blew to the winds. Afterwards she sprinkled her husband and her boy with the water of life. Straightway they revived. And from that time forward they lived. But whether happy or not is none of our business. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories, featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,021 subs in 2021. Till midnight. Cheers.